Okay, so here's the deal. How are we supposed to have confidence when you're sitting up here telling the Senate yesterday that it will take you 14 years before you can get the FBI fully staffed to do their jobs? You're also now redirecting resources so that they can go and play ICE agents on the streets. You're getting rid of your most qualified people. And even when it came down to somebody that you consider to be a friend, you were posted up having some fancy dinner to the extent that you posted not only once erroneously, you posted twice erroneously as it relates to catching somebody. And then you want to go and say, let me take a victory lap. Because honestly, if it wasn't for parents deciding that they were going to turn in their child, it seems like y'all wouldn't have got there, even though he literally confessed online. So I'm confused about what it is that the FBI is doing, except for trying to put on a show for the apprentice, or whatever you want to call him.
In a bold oversight moment, Rep. Jasmine Crockett confronted FBI Director Kash Patel, Donald Trump's controversial appointee. What she said didn't just target present missteps, it echoed structural failures in FBI history, especially around extremism and racial threats. Let's unpack this moment and its deeper significance.
Man, oh man, there has been so much today, and I truly don't know where to start. So I'm just going to make sure that we start off with a few facts. So a couple of facts that we need to make clear for everyone is that, number one, Director Christopher Wray, when he was appointed to be the head of the FBI, was appointed by Donald Trump. Now, I will agree that I definitely take issue with a number of decisions that Donald Trump makes, especially when it comes to the people that he decides to appoint to very important positions, including this one, because I did have to make sure that I wasn't going crazy. But when I say that you are the least qualified FBI director in the history of the FBI, that is real, because you are the only one that never even served with the FBI prior to joining, yet we are supposed to believe that you are the greatest thing since sliced bread. I didn't ask you a question. Now, what I want to go through is to talk about why you are a failure and why, honestly, we just need to tell you bye-bye. I know that you got a little upset and you put on your show for your boss because it seems like you're trying to save your job when it came to talking to Senator Booker yesterday. But let's go through some of your failures. So before you were even confirmed, and I think one of my colleague from Georgia, pointed out that you were already targeting career officials so that you could direct illegal firings. Mind you, these cases that you were so upset about, which are the ones tied to Trump, the cases came through his handpicked FBI director. And frankly, when people sit around and say things like, oh, you know, we're happy because now we feel safe, I don't know who feels safe in this country except for the white supremacist, because I specifically as a black woman definitely don't feel safe. And frankly, my colleagues have been real nice to you today, and I applaud them, but I don't have the same demeanor because I know that multiple colleagues on this side of the aisle have faced death threats. In fact, somebody tried to kill one of my colleagues. And frankly, I don't know if this FBI or under your leadership, if those people would have been caught. I don't have any confidence in you. And if we start talking about the reasons that I lack confidence, we could start with you not just wanting to acknowledge some simple facts. Simple facts like the vast majority of the threats are coming from right-wing extremism. And I know my colleagues have tried to stress this, but I decided that I would maybe do it in a different way. Number one, I have a couple of UCs. Kim Buck, one of multiple Republicans receiving death threats for voting against Jim Jordan as House Speaker.
Without objection.
Another one, Republican lawmaker says she received death threats after voting against Jim Jordan in Speaker's race.
Without objection.
In addition, there was another one from another colleague who now is leaving Congress because they said that they were calling his wife anonymously and threatening her life to the extent that she ended up sleeping with a firearm.
Without objection.
Okay. So here's the deal. How are we supposed to have confidence when you're sitting up here telling the Senate yesterday that it will take you 14 years before you can get the FBI fully staffed to do their jobs? You're also now redirecting resources so that they can go and play ICE agents on the streets. You're getting rid of your most qualified people. And even when it came down to somebody that you consider to be a friend, you were posted up having some fancy dinner to the extent that you posted not only once erroneously, you posted twice erroneously as it relates to catching somebody. And then you want to go and say, let me take a victory lap. Because honestly, if it wasn't for parents deciding that they were going to turn in their child, it seems like y'all wouldn't have got there. Even though he literally confessed online. So I'm confused about what it is that the FBI is doing, except for trying to put on a show for the apprentice, or whatever you want to call him. The day after all of this took place, there was domestic terrorism that was taking place at HBCUs. They were targeted. Yet I didn't hear anything from the FBI about what was going on. And again, black people kept saying, how did we end up in this? Because the numbers are so very clear that white supremacy is a problem. And honestly, I've not heard anything out of you today that makes me believe that you're going to do anything about the white supremacy problem. The one that is leading to children being killed, children being shot, as well as members of their community as they're worshiping in their churches.
The time of the gentlelady has expired. If the gentleman would like to respond to any of that. Well, I'll respond. Kash Patel, as I said when I introduced him, public defender, former prosecutor, top staffer on the House Intelligence Committee, Deputy Director of National Intelligence with the National Security Council, Chief of Staff at the Department of Defense, and FBI Director. I think that's a pretty good resume for the guy who's now running the top law enforcement agency in our country. And we've seen all the stats that he's given to the committee on how much better they're doing at getting the bad guys than the previous guy was doing. With that, I recognize the gentleman from South Carolina.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director Patel, I think you're witnessing some auditions, clickbait auditions for the Academy Award for my Democratic colleagues. We'll see how they fare as they're on MSNBC later on today. But do you care, before I launch into my line of questioning, to respond to Ms. Crockett from Texas on that very elaborate and theatric display?
Here's what I've learned in my government service. I don't give a damn what they say about me as long as I'm succeeding in the mission. We're succeeding in the mission because the men and women of the FBI have never been empowered to do more work and to hit the streets harder than by President Trump's authorities and resources he's given us. And so all I care about is that we are capturing more child predators than ever before, taking more drugs off the streets than ever before, that we are capturing murderers at a significantly historic rate, and we're delivering this country the lowest murder rate in recorded history. That are facts that you cannot dispute. But you can come at me all you want. I don't care.
Thank you, Director, for that. And we appreciate your service. We appreciate the results speak for themselves, I think, pretty plainly, and your commitment not only to results, but to transparency. So we do appreciate that.
Every so often, a congressional hearing produces a moment that feels like it cuts through the noise, a moment where history, accountability, and raw truth collide. This exchange between Rep. Jasmine Crockett and FBI Director Kash Patel is one of those moments. To understand why, you have to zoom out. The FBI is one of the most powerful agencies in American history, but it's also one of the most controversial. From J. Edgar Hoover's campaigns against civil rights leaders, to the infamous COINTELPRO program that spied on black activists, to post-9/11 surveillance targeting Muslim communities, the Bureau has a long track record of prioritizing certain threats while ignoring others. And more often than not, the threats ignored are the ones that put marginalized communities in danger. That's why Crockett's confrontation with Patel matters. She didn't just argue policy details, she spoke directly to that historic imbalance. She said, as a black woman, she does not feel safe under Patel's FBI. And she connected that to the broader truth, that the agency has consistently failed to treat white supremacist violence with the seriousness it deserves. This isn't just about today's director, it's about decades of institutional blind spots. Crockett underscored that the very communities most targeted by violence, black students at HBCUs, worshipers in black churches, immigrant families threatened by far-right hate groups, are the communities most often overlooked by federal law enforcement leadership. Patel's silence in the wake of targeted bomb threats against HBCUs wasn't a slip. It was part of a pattern. What makes this historically significant is that Patel is not an accidental leader. He was placed here by Donald Trump, a president who openly downplayed white supremacy, called violent extremists very fine people, and built his political machine on grievance and fear. Patel is the embodiment of politicized law enforcement. Crockett's words about him being the least qualified director in history are more than an insult. They're a diagnosis. And then there's the staffing crisis. Patel admitted it could take 14 years to fully staff the FBI. Historically, the Bureau has seen ups and downs in resources, but a 14-year gap? That's unprecedented. In the meantime, Patel has chosen to redirect resources toward immigration enforcement, echoing an old tactic where agencies over-police certain populations while ignoring the structural threats posed by white supremacist groups. That's not new. That's history repeating itself. Crockett also highlighted something unique about this moment. Republicans themselves are now facing the violence their rhetoric unleashed. Lawmakers receiving death threats, families living in fear, wives sleeping with guns. In the past, threats from extremists were often brushed aside because they were seen as a danger only to marginalized groups. But history shows us that violence unchecked always spreads. Today, it's consuming even members of the party that once excused it. That's why this oversight moment feels like a turning point. The tension here is bigger than one director. It's about whether the FBI can ever truly serve all Americans equally. Crockett's line of questioning reminds us that democracy depends not just on laws and institutions, but on the courage of people willing to speak truth when institutions fail. And history tells us something else. If those voices are ignored, the cost is high. From the civil rights leaders the FBI tried to silence, to the communities that bore the brunt of ignored warnings about violent extremism, the lesson is clear. When oversight is absent, justice falters. So when Crockett said she has no confidence in Kash Patel, she wasn't just speaking personally. She was giving voice to a historic reality. The FBI has earned skepticism, and Patel's leadership deepens that mistrust. Oversight hearings are often dismissed as political theater, but sometimes they reveal truths the history books will remember. Crockett versus Patel feels like one of those moments. And like so many oversight confrontations of the past, its significance won't be measured by Patel's response in the room. It will be measured by whether the public demands something better in the years ahead. This is democracy now and then. We connect the fights of today to the struggles of yesterday, because democracy doesn't just live in the present. It is shaped by memory, by accountability, and by our willingness to confront both the past and the present with honesty. So stay tuned, subscribe, and share your thoughts, because history is being written right now.